I'm Butch Spiridon, President and CEO of the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation. It's been an honor for our organization to work with U.S. Soccer and FIFA over the last couple of years, actually for us since 2009, to attempt to recruit a World Cup experience for Music City. I want to give a special welcome to Victor Montagliani and Colin Smith, representing FIFA. Thank you all. I also want to acknowledge Burke Nihill, president of the Tennessee Titans. I also want to thank Governor Lee and Mayor Cooper for joining us earlier today. Both have been great advocates and supporters of Nashville's effort to bring this to a reality. And earlier today, we announced our co-chairs, if we're fortunate enough to be selected as a host city. So let me also acknowledge, again, Burke, John Ingram, Ian Ayers, and Colin Reed, who would serve as co-chairs to help us pull off what we would envision to be a highly successful World Cup event. Just 11 days ago, we were here hosting the U.S. men versus Canada in a World Cup qualifier. By our standards, it was a great event. We always want more attendance, but 43,000 vibrant fans made a great showing for Nashville, and we had a great game. Neither of us, Victor's from Canada, so I say neither one of us wanted a tie, but I guess we had to leave friends. We continue to elevate our game. We continue to host world-class soccer events, and we continue to position Nashville as a world-class event city. Our track record speaks for itself, most recently with the NFL draft. Our partnerships with city departments is what allows that to take place. So as I acknowledge Mayor Cooper, let me also acknowledge Chief Swan, who's still here with us today. Chief Drake was with us, Public Works, Parks, Sports Authority. I could go on, but this doesn't happen without great cooperation. It's one of the strengths of Nashville. We're looking forward to continuing to show FIFA why we are a viable candidate. And we're here today at this time to try to answer some questions for you all. And as I think it was requested, we want the questions here to stick to the 2026 bidding process and effort. So without further ado, let me introduce Victor Montagliani, who is the CONCACAF president and FIFA vice president. Victor?
Thanks, Bud. We do share the I think the longest unprotected border in the world, right? So a tie, I think, was appropriate. Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here, the home of the Music City Miracle, I think, right? And I think it's appropriate that from the time we've stepped off the plane last night, and we were warmly greeted with your typical Southern hospitality of Nashville, that we've heard about the miracle of Nashville and the growth and the tremendous growth, and very impressive to hear sort of where the city has been and where the city has become. And obviously, as Vice President of FIFA, I think it would be missed by me if I didn't acknowledge the tremendous growth that Ian and his team has done at Nashville soccer club, and I don't know if that's a mistake or a Freudian slip, but one or the other, eh? And just to see, obviously, what they're going to be and what they're going to become, so congratulations on that. But I think for us, obviously, we are here to do our due diligence on not only the stadium, but the city and all things in between. We will continue that this afternoon and later on early this evening before we leave. But I think it's important for us to acknowledge that the World Cup is the biggest event in the world. I know for some of us, and as you already heard, I'm from Canada, for some of us that are used to North American sports, whether it's American football or ice hockey, and you have both here, sometimes it's a foreign thing to say, but it's not. The World Cup will be a tremendous event, will be a tremendous platform, not only for the game itself, but also for a city, for a state, and for a country. And I think Nashville has put their best foot forward, of course, showing everything it has and everything it can be. And so we look forward to continuing our due diligence and working with the officials and the great team that you have, Butch, here assembled to see where we go when we finally make a decision. So with that, I'd like to pass on to back to Butch, I think. Thank you. Or Colin.
Okay, good afternoon. It's great to be here finally in Nashville. We've had to work with Butch and his team remotely on Zoom and so on over the last couple of years. And it's fantastic to actually be here in person. So big thank you to Butch and the team for all the patience and the hard work and the commitment. The energy, the passion, the enthusiasm from Nashville has been evident from day one. And we've seen more of that today. And we've had presentations from the city and understood what an event city Nashville is and what it's previously done and what it can offer FIFA and hosting a World Cup. So it's great to be here. We've got a tour lasting 10 days. We're on day 2 now. And basically what we're looking at is all the components that go into being a host city of a FIFA World Cup. And the World Cup, as Victor said, it is the biggest sporting event in the world. And what we want to do is basically deliver magical experiences on the pitch and off the pitch. And we do this for all our stakeholders, so be it the fans, be it the media, broadcasters, or the residents, indeed, of the city. And cities and stadiums have become more and more just integral partners of being able to successfully deliver a World Cup. So it has been great to hear about the plans this morning. We look forward to visiting the stadium this afternoon, completing the tour, and then we'll carry on, doing the other venues with a view to taking then the final decision sort of beginning of next year. But I wanted to thank the Governor, the Mayor, Butch and the whole team here in Nashville. It's great to be here, and we certainly look forward to being able to come back and spend a bit more time than we are on this trip. So thank you.
Well, it is an honor to be hosting the FIFA delegation today. Of course, it would be even more of an honor to host FIFA in the 2026 World Cup. We consider this building to be Nashville's biggest stage. We get excited about events other than American football being here, and an interesting range of events, whether it's IndyCar, CMA Fest, hockey later this winter, and clearly, there is no bigger event in the world than the World Cup. And so we've been excited to participate in sharing with the FIFA delegation our vision for this stadium, to share our experience working with the Nashville CVC to do this sort of event, which Nashville, in our minds, do better than anyone else in the country. So we're excited to show them the rest of the stadium later today, and look forward to their decision about 2026.
Thanks, Burke, and thank you, gentlemen. It'd be important for me to acknowledge FIFA's attention to detail is second to none. And I say that with great admiration and great angst. What we have gone through, put ourselves through the paces, is an experience that is both teachable and memorable. So thank you for the pain. It's been good. I'd like to open the floor to questions. And Teresa, I understand I could count on you for our questions. So if you would state your name and who you're with, that would be great.
Absolutely. Teresa Walker, the Associated Press. And I would butcher your name, sir, if I tried it right now.
Victor's fine.
Thank you, Victor. Will FIFA insist on exemptions from state and local taxes for host cities and states, and would FIFA maybe bypass New York, Massachusetts, California if those states and municipalities insist on taxing players, coaches, and other staff?
Yeah, with respect to you're referring to the agreements that have already been signed. We have 3 levels of agreements. We have the host city agreement, we have the stadium agreements, and then we have the airport agreements. And so in there's language pertains to, I'm not a lawyer, but a lot of legalese. There is some tax issues that have to be addressed because one of the things we need to be cognizant of too is that major events bring major economic impact. So those are all things that are discussed as we move forward. And with respect to when we make our final decision on you go from a candidate to a host, everything comes into play. It's not just about stadiums and obviously that's very important, but not just about stadiums and capacity, but it's everything. And so that's something that will always be factored in. But it's a long list, and that's one of the things that it's on the list as well.
This question is for Victor as well. Drake Hills with the Tennessean. In terms of the fact that you have been in conversation with Nashville as well as Colin and FIFA for well over a month now, but given the fact that this is your time to be here in person, I'm curious to know, in terms of the information that you acquired beforehand, how has that translated now that you have been in person, your takeaways from what you've seen thus far, and how does that inform what FIFA sees in Nashville currently?
Yeah, I think, and I can let Colin address it because it's not been only a month. Colin and his team have, done everything really on Zoom over the last, since we won the bid. I mean, ironically, I was on the other side of the fence as leading the bid. And when we won it in 2018, all of a sudden, I was vice president of FIFA. Now I'm on this side with Colin. So, as they say, I got traded quickly to the other team. But Colin, really from that day on, Colin and his team has been leading the charge with respect to all the information that's required. And we still have a ways to go. We still got to finish the stadium tour this afternoon. Obviously, there'll be a lot more questions at the end of the day, and even when we leave here, there'll be questions. But I'm sure Butch and his team will have all the answers like they've had so far. So.
My name is Claudio Villalobos from Fútbol en la Piel. Colin, I have a question for you. Being the director of events for FIFA for such a long time and being here and there organizing events for FIFA, is 10 days good enough? What are you looking for in 10 days in a city like Nashville to be able to, I'm not going to say make up your mind, but to add something towards us on this occasion?
Yeah, no, very good question. Look, I think it's not just 10 days. As Victor said, we've been working on this for years. Don't forget, during the bid process as well, we are going into a lot of detail on each of the cities and the venues, and then post appointment of US, Canada, Mexico. We've then been spending a lot of time going through all the details. So, without COVID, we would have been here and done multiple visits for sure, and we've been very open about that. This is the first time that we've been able to come, and so we've made the most of the time that we've had. There's been regular exchanges of information, regular Zoom calls with a large team from Nashville. And, what the day visit in each city does, it just gives us the opportunity to really verify and see for ourselves and feel for ourselves the information that's being presented. Driving through Lower Broadway last night on a Wednesday night, the presentations weren't a lie. It is a very vibrant city and there's a lot of activity going on. I haven't tasted the hot chicken yet, but that will hopefully be next. So. What do we look for? We basically look for everything. Events of this scale boil down, as many things do, to details. And that's our job. We want to look at the details in order that the magical experiences are delivered. So we look at everything from, obviously, the stadium, training sites, accommodation, transport, sustainability, waste management, airport. So it's basically all the different pieces of the jigsaw. We've asked a lot of questions. We'll ask more questions. And there'll be subsequent follow-up between now and then the final decision. So is it enough? We always wish we could spend more time, but it's certainly been a very in-depth process, and we've got all the information we need so far. Thank you.
Chris Davis with News Channel 5. For the FIFA delegation, Butch just mentioned that you guys are very intent into the details of all of this. You mentioned some of this before, Colin, but what are some of the details that will take to be able to pull off such a big event, and how has Nashville responded to those requests?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, events are delivered by people, right? So yes, requirements and details are black and white, you know, it's on paper, but ultimately they need brought to life and they need to be delivered. And cities, I referenced earlier, cities become an integral partner of delivering an event. No longer is it a location which happens to have a stadium. We need to partner with cities, with stadiums and venues in order to successfully deliver to all our stakeholders, be it teams with base camps, be it journalists coming in and out, be it hospitality guests, fans, sponsors. We've got such a wide range of people who come and experience a World Cup from different angles. And what we want to do is make sure that we cover off all those angles to make sure that everyone who comes in really has those defining moments. You know, I remember where I was when kind of moment. And that's what we're here to do. Nashville have presented, obviously, their growth, the successful events they've had, the energy, the passion for major events. And also what we saw this morning was a real integration of all the city services, the city and state services that come together to manage and deliver big events. And those are key important topics for us to understand further.
Tosin Fakile, Channel 4. For either of you, Victor or Colin, so speaking it into existence, if Nashville does get the bid to host the city, what's the next step? What happens next? What do they have to do to continue to move the process forward? And when do you guys expect to make a decision on the cities that will be host cities for 2026?
Obviously, there's 23 cities that we need to see between now and end of November. And then there'll be obviously a lot of reports done by Colin and his team and other teams, some that are not even here, with other departments, media and all that stuff. So that will all sort of go to the steering committee of the World Cup, which I chair with the FIFA president, and those decisions will be then made in likely at some point in early January in terms of when you go from a candidate to a host. Once you become a host city, then it's a different ball game altogether. Now you're at the dance, as they say, and if you think the detail and the rigorous was tough as a candidate, it's tougher as a host. I hate to really say that, Butch. So, but it's different, right? It's obviously different, but then it's live. You know, it's not theory, it's not questions. I mean, there's questions, but now it's a different tone of the question, right? So, but then it really ramps up, and as much as we're 5 years away from the World Cup, as we all know, for people that have put on events like Butch, 5 years goes by like that. All right, so.
Mike, hello. I'm from Nashville Noticias, and my question is for Mr. Victor. I know you were a player too, so you have experience in soccer. So basically, what are you guys looking to say yes, and what are you looking to say no? And I know exactly that you know that this year, Nashville hosts the Indianapolis Formula Car for the first time, and we got the NASCAR came back too. So we got two biggest events that basically was in Nashville too. So what do you think about it? Do you think we're going to have a chance?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the acknowledgement as a player. I was a legend in my own mind, trust me. But the reality is that yes and no is a binary question. And for those of us that have been through this process many times, both on Butch's end and also on our end, it's not a binary question. It's not yes or no, because every candidate city that's put their foot forward has features, has things that they're going to bring to the table. So it's not that easy of a question in terms of yes and no. In some ways, I wish we could say yes to almost to everyone, but then we would have to have a 96-team World Cup. And we had enough troubles with pushing it to 48. Ian's having a laugh because I think he was at Liverpool at the time we did that. And I'm sure as the CEO of Liverpool, he goes, what the hell are you doing? So the reality is it's not a yes or no question. But, rest assured that I think from a candidate standpoint, you know, your team that is responsible for that has definitely put their best foot forward.
Can you hear me? Okay. The media market, the advertising capacity of the market here, how does that figure in compared to the other options?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think Colin, you know, he kind of listed off the top of his head everything from stadium to environmental impact to, you know, how does the water system, you know, flush the toilets in the stadium? Literally, I mean, when we say detail, I mean everything's a detail. That is obviously an important factor, but you know, not from a factor in terms of trying to sell media thing, because FIFA sells the media rights to the World Cup. Most of them have already been sold in 2026. Not all of them, but most of them have already been sold. And so from that perspective, it's not really a thing. It's more about the media in terms of making sure when the media comes, it's hosted properly. There's enough, obviously, infrastructure to host. Because, you know, I'll give you an example. When you host a major North American event, just from a broadcasting standpoint, you may have, I don't know, 3 or 4 broadcasters broadcasting that game, maybe 2 because they bought the rights. When we put on the World Cup, you got, I don't know, 60? I don't know how many broadcasters that are broadcasting the game, because you have the Japanese broadcaster coming in, you got the broadcaster from Africa, you got, right? So it's more of a capacity. It's not so much from a money media market standpoint that we're necessarily doing our due diligence from.
I'd like to thank these gentlemen for taking time to answer your questions. We're going to conclude open questions, and everybody's available for individual interviews, as well as Ian Ayers, who is my secret weapon for understanding football globally. So thank you all very much for coming out today. We appreciate your support.
Hey, cameras, we'll take you guys down in about